So Australia is standing on the edge of something dangerous, and most people don't even realize it yet. The government is pushing legislation that is not just misguided, it's not just overreaching, but fundamentally, it's evil. In its design and in its intent, I believe it's evil. There's no other way. I don't think there's any other way, no polite way anyway, to frame it. When the government uses a national tragedy, this tragedy from Bondi at the very end of last year, it's using it as political leverage to ram through laws that strip away basic freedoms. That is not leadership. I've spoken countless times about leadership. What is leadership? The lack of leadership that we have in our nation. I said just after the tragedy in Bondi occurred that we would see the government use the tragedy to ram through its own agenda, its own, at that time, maybe not a hidden agenda, but its own agenda. It would try and come and it would say, we're going to fix the problem. And it overlooks the fact that it actually helped cause the problem. And it is not actually fixing the issues that were there. It's not looking at its own shortcomings. It's the way the government, the federal government, fell short. It's not going to look at the way the police, the New South Wales police, fell short. There are definitely issues on the ground that need to be fixed. But no, they're going to ram through more legislation that strips away freedoms. As I said, that's not leadership, that's manipulation, and it should disgust every Australian who values liberty. This bill is a stain on the government who's pushing it. And I say that, but then I think, well, is it a stain or is it actually just the government showing its true colours? This is what the government, the Labor government, the current Labor government under Albanese actually stands for. And this is going to push the political will of everyone in this nation, all of our politicians. If they choose to vote for this, they should be held accountable by the public, politically, morally, and historically. So, buried beneath the political spin is something far more serious. This bill violates the very human rights Australia claims to uphold. So, buried beneath the political spin is something far more serious. This bill violates the very human rights Australia claims to uphold. For instance, Article 18, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Article 19, freedom of opinion and expression. Article 20, freedom of peaceful assembly and association. But let's not forget that Australia has a track record of this. When the dreaded virus came into our nation around 2019, 2020, Australia, all its government agencies just threw human rights out the door because, we've got a tragedy. We've got this crisis here. So we're going to use this crisis to just railroad human rights. Forget about human rights. Human rights only matter when the going is easy. Everything's easy breezy. When the going's tough, well, human rights don't really matter. That's our government in history and our current government. But the thing is, these aren't fringe ideas. These are fundamental rights recognized globally, and yet our own government is attempting to override them with a single piece of legislation. Anyone supporting this bill is supporting a direct attack on human rights. They should be called out for it loudly and consistently. However, one of the most disturbing parts of the bill appears in Part 5 of Section 18. So, on the surface, this may look like it targets intentional hate speech. But when you're looking at it, what's actually inside is a legal, I'll describe as a trapdoor that flips the entire justice system upside down. The bill introduces strict liability for a key section, meaning intent doesn't matter, awareness doesn't matter, and context doesn't matter. So if someone claims they felt intimidated, harassed, or unsafe, even hypothetically, you can be guilty, but not because of what you meant, but because of how someone says they felt. This is the government giving courts the power to punish people based on imagined reactions of an imaginary, reasonable person who doesn't even have to exist. So this obviously is not justice, and it's definitely not democracy. This is authoritarianism dressed up as compassion. Because remember, this is all because of the the tragedy in 2025. Okay, so it's all about compassion for this event. And remember this: the internet is also now a public place. So under this bill, the internet, this will include private groups that allow membership requests. It is considered a public place, meaning that any comment, any meme, any criticism, or any kind of political opinion can all be treated as potential criminal conduct. And because strict liability applies, you can be guilty even if you never intended harm, never targeted anyone, and never imagined someone could twist your words into a threat. This is a legal minefield designed to silence dissent. This will be used as a tool for lawfare, which I've spoken about before too, funny enough. Australia already has a justice system where you get as much justice as you can afford. If you've got the money, well, then you can afford a lot of justice. If you do not have a lot of money, well, then justice is not going to be your friend. This bill weaponizes this reality. It invites politically motivated complaints, activist driven lawsuits, taxpayer funded prosecutions. And if you can't afford it, how are you going to be raising the money to fight these complaints, to defend yourself? This will be handing enormous power to those who want to use the courts as a weapon. And then let's look at religion, what this is going to do to religious freedom and religious speech, religious teaching. Religious discrimination is baked into the bill. The bill only protects characteristics tied to race, color, national, or ethnic origin. Okay, so this means that religions tied to ethnicity are protected. Christians and atheists, they're not protected. On top of that, the bill exempts direct quotations from religious texts, which is actually kind of a good thing. It is a good thing. However, if those texts contain violent or hateful language, someone can quote a verse calling for violence and the law will protect them. But if you respond critically to those texts, to those religious texts, okay, being used to call for violence, you can be targeted under the same law. Crikey. That's not equality. That is not fairness. This is ideological preference written into legislation. So the government's justification for this legislation is built on this tragedy that happened in Bondi in 2025 in December. This was a horrific, disgusting event, but using a tragedy to justify laws that silence political speech and restrict religious freedoms, it's not helping. It's exploiting grief to expand state power. And history shows that once governments gain powers like these, they rarely give them back. So we as Australians are at a crossroads. This is just my opinion. This is the most dangerous legislation Australia has seen in years. If it passes, we will be competing with with the UK. The UK, who's been arresting or had the highest number of arrests over social media posts. And that's not something that we want to get into some kind of competition with them for. No way. If major parties support this bill, they will be signaling, they will be showing that they have abandoned the principles that they claim to stand for. Supposedly freedom, fairness, and the right for everyday Australians. However, we are seeing a turning point. We are seeing this in Australian history. And once we do go down this path, if we go down this path, climbing back up the slippery slope will become so much harder. This is all my opinion. I've been talking about this for a while. the government using crisis for its own advantage, but not confronting the real issues and not admitting where it itself is at fault and how it has actually caused some of these issues. Like I said, this is all my opinion. Please let me know what you think. Please support the channel by giving me a like and a share and subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Jay Fallon. I am talking on the slippery slope. Thanks for listening.
They just fuel a desire that will take me high.